Echo checked the time on her phone for the third time in 2 minutes. We go in through the back of the adult store. The alley connects straight to the jewelry shop's service corridor. 10 minutes in, 2 minutes out, then we disappear. Nancy Java Lava cracked her knuckles, the sound sharp in the quiet car. She was the muscle of the group, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar that cut through her left eyebrow and a temper that matched the name she had chosen for herself. I still think this is stupid. Cutting through a sex shop at midnight feels like inviting trouble. Sen Angel Warrior sat in the back seat, sharpening a small folding knife with slow, deliberate strokes. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Trouble is already waiting. We just haven't met it yet. Echo ignored both of them. She had planned this for weeks. The jewelry store on the other side of the block had a weak point in its rear security, but the only clean approach was through the old adult store that shared the alley. The place was called Velvet Vale. It had been there for decades. Most people avoided it after dark. They parked 2 streets away and walked. The front of Velvet Vale was dark except for a single red neon sign that buzzed and flickered. The windows were blacked out. A handwritten note on the door read, "Open until 2 a.m." Echo pushed it open. A small bell rang somewhere deeper inside, though none of them saw it. The air hit them first. It smelled of old leather, cheap perfume, and something sweeter that clung to the back of the throat. Rows of shelves stretched into the gloom, stacked with toys, costumes, DVDs, and things none of them wanted to examine too closely. Red lights along the ceiling cast long, warped shadows. Somewhere in the back, a song played on a loop, soft, breathy, and slightly off-key. Nancy muttered, "This place is a fucking graveyard." They moved quickly toward the rear of the store, following Echo's map. The deeper they went, the quieter the city outside became. The music grew louder, the temperature dropped. Then the lights went out. Not all at once. One by one, the red bulbs died with a soft pop, leaving only the emergency exit sign glowing a sickly green at the far end of the aisle. Echo flicked on her phone flashlight. The beam shook slightly. "Keep moving," she said. They were halfway down the main aisle when the first mannequin turned its head. It was a female form in a black lace bodysuit, standing near a display of restraints. Its plastic eyes followed them. Nancy raised her fist. Did that just... The mannequin's mouth opened. A wet clicking sound came from inside it, like teeth on glass. Then every mannequin in the store moved at once. They stepped off their platforms with jerky, wrong movements. Some crawled, some walked on all fours. One dragged itself forward with arms that bent the wrong way. The air filled with the sound of plastic scraping linoleum and soft, breathless laughter. Sen Angel Warrior was the first to react. She kicked a crawling mannequin hard enough to crack its head against a shelf. The plastic skull split open and something black and oily spilled out, smoking where it hit the floor. "Run," Echo shouted. They sprinted for the back door. The door was gone. In its place stood a tall, red-painted wooden door that had not been there a moment before. It was old, covered in deep scratches and slightly ajar. Cold air leaked from the gap. Beyond it was not the alley. Beyond it was darkness that moved. Nancy tried the original rear exit. The wall where it should have been was solid brick. We're locked in. The mannequins were getting closer. Their laughter had turned into overlapping whispers. Some of the voices sounded like children. Some sounded like the 3 women themselves. Echo made the decision. Through the red door, now. They pushed through. The moment they crossed the threshold, the store vanished. They stood in a long, narrow corridor made of the same red wood as the door. The walls pulsed faintly, like something breathing. The floor was soft under their feet, almost fleshy. The air was thick and warm and smelled of copper and sex and rotting flowers. A voice spoke from everywhere at once, soft, intimate, and wrong. "You came looking for pretty things. Stay, we have so many." The corridor stretched ahead of them without end. Doors lined both sides. Some were open. Behind one, something wet dragged itself across a floor. Behind another, a woman was crying the same 3 words over and over. "Don't look, don't look, don't look." Nancy smashed her shoulder into the nearest closed door. It splintered. Behind it was a room filled with hanging chains and mirrors that showed only empty space where their reflections should have been. Something in the mirrors smiled when they did not. They kept moving. The limbo did not want them to leave. It rearranged itself. Corridors looped. Stairs led down into rooms that had no floors. At one point, they found themselves walking across a ceiling while the floor above them dripped black fluid that whispered their names. Echo tried to keep them focused. There has to be a way out. everything that pulls you in has a reverse. Sen Angel Warrior stopped in front of a door that looked newer than the others. Fresh scratches marked the wood as if someone had tried to claw their way out. This one feels different. They opened it. The room beyond was a perfect copy of the jewelry store they had planned to rob. Glass cases, velvet displays, soft lighting. For one heartbeat, it felt like salvation. Then the glass cases filled with teeth, human teeth. Rows and rows of them, polished and arranged like diamonds. In the center of the room stood a figure made entirely of mannequin parts and jewelry, its face a smooth blank mask. It spoke with Echo's voice. You were supposed to take the pretty things. Instead, you brought yourselves. Nancy charged it. The fight was ugly and close. The figure moved too fast, limbs bending in ways that should have broken them. Nancy's fists cracked plastic and something harder underneath. Sen Angel Warrior cut at its joints with her knife. Echo smashed a display case and used a heavy metal stand as a weapon. Black fluid sprayed when they wounded it. Where the fluid hit the floor, small hands grew and tried to grab their ankles. They brought the figure down. It did not die cleanly. It broke into pieces that kept twitching, each piece whispering a different promise: wealth, pleasure, safety, love. Echo set the remains on fire with a lighter and a bottle of something flammable she found behind a counter that should not have been there. The room began to collapse. Walls folded inward. The ceiling dripped. The redwood corridor outside groaned like a living thing in pain. They ran. Doors opened as they passed, showing brief, terrible glimpses. A version of Nancy hanging from chains. A version of Sen Angel Warrior with her mouth sewn shut. A version of Echo sitting in a chair made of her own poetry books, while something with too many fingers turned the pages. They did not stop. At the end of the final corridor stood the original red door, now cracked and bleeding a thin black liquid from the scratches. Nancy kicked it open. Cold night air hit them like a slap. They stumbled into the alley behind the adult store. The city was still there. The jewelry store's rear wall stood intact and ordinary. The red door was gone. In its place was the normal metal service door of Velvet Veil, locked and silent. Behind them, inside the store, every light was off. No music played, no mannequins moved. They did not speak for a long time. Nancy was the first to find her voice. It came out rough. We're not going in there again, ever. Sen Angel Warrior wiped her knife clean on her jeans and stared at the dark windows of the adult store. It let us leave. Echo looked down at her hands. There was a thin black stain under one fingernail that would not wipe away. Or it wants us to come back. They walked away without looking back. The original heist was finished before it began. None of them ever spoke of the jewelry store again. But on certain nights, when the city was quiet and the red neon of Velvet Veil flickered in the distance, each of them dreamed of a long red corridor that still knew their names. And somewhere behind a door that no longer existed, something patient waited for the next people who thought a shortcut through an old sex shop would be easy.